We all heard about Daniel Senecal, the guy that abused this toddler out of Welland. He just got out of jail in March for raping a 12-year-old in 2021, served a year off of a 1.5-year sentence, was released 6 months early, and now he just raped a toddler. But the part that blows my mind, and I don't know if you guys knew this, but the National Sex Offender Registry is not publicly available. I spent a lot of my time in the US, like 6 months. Over there, you go on their website, you can tell right away. But here in Canada, that's not the case. And the main reason why, they want to protect the identity of fucking pedophiles. So the question I have for you guys is a hard one, but it definitely needs to be spoken about. Should the National Sex Offender Registry be publicly available? In my case, 2 words. Fuck yes.
100% yes.
All right, Jeff?
1,000%.
Who was surprised that it's not available right now? I was. Cory?
Yeah.
Absolutely. If it's not going to be public, there's no fucking point in it.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And then Gov, what do you think?
It's a pretty straightforward question. Everybody that donated to the Freedom Convoy, they had all that information hacked and they were spreading that all over the internet within a couple of days. Yet we can't even know who these sex offenders are. And the question that was proposed, when you go to the United States, all you have to do is punch in a zip code and it'll tell you every single sex offender in that zip code. But that's not the case in Canada.
When I heard about this, I started doing a lot of research. I contacted a bunch of lawyers to come on the show in order to talk about this, because there's a lot of lawyers out there that are protecting the National Sex Offender Registry, and they don't want it to be public because they want to protect those pedophiles. They're scared of vigilante justice. Like, that wouldn't be a good thing, right? Now, why would somebody not want that registry to be publicly available? I asked myself this question this week. I could only come up with one answer, because they're on it. Can any of you guys think about one single reason why it shouldn't be available?
I could think that maybe there's a woke naivety among people in justice thinking that these guys are reformable. I'm just playing devil's advocate. I don't think it's a good reason, but I'm just trying to think of why this might happen. They won't be able to settle in and become, normally functioning people. The problem is they're child rapists, so they'll never become normally functioning people. That they feel that if these guys are getting chased around all the time, they won't be able to be rehabilitated properly within the society.
Yeah, and that's a good point, but I think rehabilitation or public safety, which one takes priority on that one? And the only one I can come up with, Nico, to try and be devil's advocate as well, are errors, or similar names. So we'd have to make sure that John Doe is the John Doe, the sex offender, and not the 400,000 other ones that are around as well. Because I have a group that comes after me, the Calistanis and the Indian group. They keep posting about a Jason Lavigne in the US who is a sex offender, and they keep saying this guy's a sex offender, and it's not me, doesn't look like me, and nothing's about me, but yet they're using that against me. Now, I wouldn't say that's a good reason to keep the list off. I just want to make sure that there's no errors.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that there's a legitimate reason.
No.
I think that's what the question was really about, like what would be the legitimate reason. I think that my view is similar to the others expressed already, and that there's a kind of idealism that underlies left-wing thinking, and they tend to view criminals as victims of our society, like it's a society's fault kind of thing. That's very much in line with their collectivist thinking. We should spare them and be nice to them. When it comes to the compare and contrast between here in the United States, particularly with respect to, publication of the names, this idea that they're going to be witch hunted and subjected to, all these kind of outrage mobs and stuff like that. Well, what's happening in the United States? Is that happening in the United States? Like, we have the example that we can look to. This is another strain of left-wing thinking where possibility is very often conflated with probability. So if they can imagine a possibility like outdoor transmission, for example, then that becomes the target of the entire effort. And whether or not it's just in their imaginations never really occurs to them. If we're going to operate within the real world and have a hope of success, then we need to deal in probabilities. We need to deal in the real world. So this is a very left-wing approach to what is one of the sickest things that ever happens in our society, if not the sickest.
And I have no issue with people being paranoid and worried if that their neighbors know. That might be a deterrent not to get yourself on that list to begin with. So it might be a good thing for public safety. You don't want to be on that list, stay away from that activity. And maybe, Nico, you were onto something. Maybe they don't want the list released because some of them might be on it, including politicians, mayors, and that kind of stuff. So wondering if they're curious about exposing that to the public would expose some of them as well. Because we have heard stories about the young party members and some of the ways they move up that list. So maybe some of these are offenders themselves.
I 100% think Justin Trudeau's on that list, and he's the one that made it secret. 100%. He's on that list. I think he was groomed as a young child, and I think all of this was a slow grooming to get us to not respond and survive. So if you look at society and the way it was going, it was like, oh, don't slut shame, don't fat shame. And now we're trying to sympathize with a bunch of child rapists. It's beyond wild. And they don't actually have an excuse. It's nothing to do with safety. Why should we care about the safety of a child rapist? Who gives a shit? They took the innocent life away of a child. So why would you even sympathize with people like this unless you have an agenda to groom an entire society of children in Canada to be accepting of grooming and child rape? They're trying to normalize it. That's all it is. That's the only reason why they're not hiding it. They don't actually have a real excuse for it. And the government doesn't give a crap about vigilante. They only care about themselves. So that means half of them are on that list. That's the only reason why it's being hidden, is because they're on the list and they're trying to protect themselves. They don't care about us.
Also have to keep in mind that even when people are charged with child exploitation and distribution of child pornography, the charges that are laid up against them could be relatively minor. I remember this gentleman by the name of Ben Levin. He was the deputy education minister under Kathleen Wynne in Ontario, and he got charged for distributing child pornography. There's 3 charges in total. I think he spent like 2 years in jail. You can go to jail and spend longer time in jail for distributing raw milk than you can for distributing child pornography in Canada. And that's absolutely insane.
Daniel Senecal spent 1 year in prison for raping a 12-year-old. It was 18 months and he was released 6 months early.
And if someone breaks into your house and you use violent force against them, you could be sent to jail for 5 years.